Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I will show a recap of a 2007 Canadian film named Normal. Typical heads up, keep an eye out and take care. Catherine ponders her late child Nikki. She says she never anticipated that her child should bite the dust early, yet her child passed on at 16. Following the demise of Nikki, Catherine becomes undermined. That day she watches her significant other Dale and her child Brady venture out from home. She watches the environment news and gives Brady a sweater in the event of cold. She gets back to the house and acts unreasonably for some time, then, at that point, goes to her telephone. She calls her spouse Dale to remind him about their supper that evening. Dale cautions her not to call at work and finishes the call at a college. Walter Brower shows the understudies, and after the class an understudy Sherry goes to meet the instructor. She lets him know that she can't compose his task as she works at a channel, so she possesses not had sufficient energy for herself. The speaker asks her for what reason she is taking the course. What's more, she lets him know it is on the grounds that she doesn't believe her partner at work should consider her to be an instrument for cold at a jail. Geordie is a prisoner and he won't join his kindred detainee in playing football. The counselor comes to him and cautions him to join the gathering. He lets him know that he doesn't maintain that he should get back to the jail once more, and Geordie guarantees he won't ever return to the jail. An individual detainee tosses his ball at him and a battle arises. Dennis is an incompletely medically introverted kid. He gets a call and will not answer. He peruses a portion of his numerical citations to quiet himself down. That night Catherine and Dale go to supper with her companion as planned. During the supper Catherine acts oddly. He will not eat blood meat regardless of her significant others arguing. That evening Geordie's dad comes to get him at the jail. He attempts to keep a discussion with him about his conversation with his better half Elise. However, Geordie won't catch wind of Elise. He says Elise isn't his mom and Elise has no privilege to settle on his life. They additionally discuss his sister Carly and how Carly is a preferable variant over Geordie. Catherine gets back tired. Dale conveys her to her room and gets her into the bed. In the interim, Walter goes to his parlor to peruse a paper about their late kid. He gets back to the room and meets Catherine crying. The following day, Geordie awakens and educates his dad regarding his life designs. His dad didn't appear to be intrigued. He just let him know he should find a new line of work in a week, or more than likely he would take off from his home after his dad goes to work. He is with his stepmother. Elise attempts to converse with him and lets him know his dad missed him while away. She requests that he assist her with the house tasks. However, Geordie declines. She says that when Carly was home Carly assists her with some house errands. Geordie wryly remarks that she has a mother-girl relationship with Carly, yet Elise says Carly is her companion. She lets him know she knows she isn't their mom and she isn't guaranteeing she is. In the meantime, Dale awakens to plan for work while Catherine stays in bed. Dale demands that she should accept Brady to school that day as they are a family and he can't continue to accomplish basically everything. He advises her to get a hold of herself and resume her nurturing obligations. After Dale leaves for work, she asks Brady what time school is and gets ready to take him to school. Walter, Dennis' sibling, gets back home bringing Dennis messages and books. He sees Dennis perusing a mail from a woman named Sylvie. Walter asks him who Sylvia is and he says Sylvie is a companion who has quite recently been let out of jail and needs to meet him. Walter recommends that they meet with Sylvie, yet Dennis declines. Walter visits a specialist to discuss his life while portraying what is going on as though it didn't occur to him. He discusses the day he took his sibling to treatment. He was sitting tight for his sibling at the bar close to the school and failed to remember his sibling. Normally he took the train, however because of the train swamp he took his vehicle. He hastily hurried to the entryway contemplating his sibling. While tanked, he drove the vehicle and slammed into another vehicle which drove to the passing of a young man named Scratch, Catherine's child. Then again Catherine goes to her child's grave. She drinks there. She leaves there, visits a grocery store, gets a few things and afterward gets back. After returning home she organizes what she bought and afterward goes into Scratch's room. She takes a gander at all of Scratch's honors and lays on his bed. She cries as she sniffs his pad. Her child Brady comes to meet her. He requests that authorization visit his companion Alan, yet Catherine declines him. She lets him know he can possibly visit assuming that Alan's folks are around. That day Geordie goes to get a new line of work and he sits for an interview at a pizza store. The proprietor sees he is an ex-convict and asks what his offense was. He tells the proprietor he took a vehicle. He is given the work and he inquires as to whether he can deal with their store. Dennis ultimately gets Sylvie's call. He tells Sylvie Sylvia's isn't allowed to see anybody. Walter meets his significant other Abby at home and Abby reminds him about their supper that day. That night Abby and Walter go for supper, however are both occupied. In the meantime Geordie gets back and needs to jerk off. As he begins his demonstration his stepmother Elise opens the entryway without a thump. He shouts at her and she is sorry. Promptly he leaves and strolls towards the road where he meets his ex-classmate and Nikki's better half Melissa. The little kid invites him back and welcomes him to an end of the week party. She inquires as to whether he has seen Scratch's mom. She says he ought to at any rate. meet with Scratch's mom, yet Geordie demands that he is the least individual Catherine needs to see with Walter. Abby attempts to engage in sexual relations with her significant other, yet Walter declines. She asks him why he left composition for a dressing, and he advises her that is what he wishes to do. Soon thereafter Abby stops from the house. She tells Walter she can't deal with him and she will be at her sister's home that night. Catherine endeavors to visit a store. She sees Geordie coming from the general store and stows away from Geordie. She enters the general store after Geordie leaves. In the wake of getting her products, she gets back and cries tears. That evening Dennis calls his sibling to illuminate him regarding Sylvie's call. Walter is bothered about Abby, so he avoids Dennis. He later gets back to Dennis to apologize and requests that he call Sylvia the following day. The following day at school, Sherry meets with Walter once more. She offers to assist him with the book he is holding, and they wind up having sex in the workplace that day. During lunch, Brady enlightens his folks concerning his improvement in soccer. However, Catherine demands Brady ought to do ball. She lets him know that her granddad was a b-ball player and Nicky was likewise a ball player, so on the off chance that Brady dedicates himself to b-ball he will know how to play well. Dale requests that she stop, so she leaves the eating and Brady leaves as well. In the meantime, Geordie goes into Eliza's room. When his dad isn't around, he meets Elise stripped down. Elise rapidly puts on her towel and Geordie goes close to her. They wind up having sex. When his dad shows up, Geordie conceals in the washroom. His dad engages in sexual relations with Elise right away and Geordie runs out while his dad is occupied. That day Walter takes Sherry to Dennis, however Dennis rejects to meet her, so Walter requests that Sherry go to the vehicle while he plans Dennis for supper with Sylvie. After the planning, he gets back to the vehicle and Sherry lashes out at him. He makes sense of that Dennis was at that point further developing before the mishap quite a while back. Sherry declines his clarification and inquires him to drive her home. On the bed, Elise gets some information about the vehicle burglary. Geordie tells her it some information was his plan to take the vehicle and drive it, and the mishap was likewise his thought. The following day after the address, Walter goes to Sherry with a bloom. In the wake of getting the blossom, Sherry lets him know they need a break. In the meantime, with Brady, he attempts to rehearse how to play ball. While he rehearses, Dale gets harmed and requests that he bring the emergency treatment box from the kitchen. He goes into the kitchen with the b-ball and meets his mom, who flies off the handle at him for playing with Nicky's ball. All Brady furiously answers that Nicky is dead, and regardless of whether she keeps Nicky's effects, Nicky will never reawaken. Sometime thereafter, Catherine apologizes to Brady, yet Brady won't hear her out. He gets back to his room. The following day while Geordie is working, Melissa visits to get some pizza, then she holds on to bring him back home. That evening he welcomes her in and they talk in his room. She lets him know that notwithstanding being Nicky's sweetheart, she didn't miss Nicky as much as she missed him. They kiss, however Elise comes in to hinder them. Elise asks Geordie what Melissa's identity is. What's more, Melissa presents herself. The following time Melissa and Geordie meet, Melissa tells Geordie that Elise views at her as though she is taking her beau. Geordie irately changes the discussion, also gets some information about Elise. They kiss. As they get back, Walter gathers the mental fortitude to visit Sherry. He meets a man in her room and the man hits him. Sherry protects him, maneuvers him into the room and locks the man outside. She assists him with his nosebleed and they proceed with their relationship. As they talk, Sherry discusses whenever she first saw him. It was during the mishap case that she says she was stunned by how gathered he was when Catherine attempted to go after him. The discussion doesn't agree with Walter, so he begins wearing his garments and goes out. The following day Sylvie visits. Dennis will not permit her, and so she consents to remain behind the entryway and make them talk. Behind the entryway he gives her a seat and they share some discussion. That day at work, Geordie's director Tim requests that Geordie clean the washroom. Geordie whines about the work he needs to do, however Tim doesn't give him listening ears. Geordie drops his cover and says he is leaving. He gets back and Melissa visits him. He goes into the house to change his material and go out with Melissa in his room. Elise attempts to have a discussion with him, be that as it may. He denies her. She follows him outside, yet he doesn't give her a group of people. Elise watches him as he drives away with Melissa. Soon thereafter, Geordie brings the fortitude to call Catherine. The following day he meets Catherine, who communicates her energy about seeing him. Geordie says he couldn't say whether Catherine needs to see him and he loathes himself for what happened. He says he was driving the vehicle since Nicky didn't have any desire to and he didn't see the driver who crashed into them from the left. Catherine then again communicates that it was her issue. She says individuals believe she should move on as it didn't work out, however it is basically impossible that she can continue on. They console each other. Walter is still down as respect Sherry's discussions. He gets a call from Dennis, who reminds him it is Thursday. The day legends with his miles and furthermore lets him know he is going out on supper with Sylvia that evening. Walter lets him know he will call him Later in the meantime, Catherine gets back and consumes all of Nikki's properties. She is sorry to Brady for her hatchet and lets him know seeing Nikki's properties and the house brings her difficulty, so they will be going on a getaway to his auntie's place. Dale attempts to beseech her to remain, however she lets him know she won't ever pardon him for continuing on. After their child's passing, Walter arrives at Dennis' place late and sees Dennis has let be. He goes to Catherine's home to apologize to her, however Catherine hits him over and again. Then again Geordie gets back to figure out that Elise has educated his dad regarding their experiences. His dad beats him over and over, also gets injured too. Catherine leaves with Brady while Melissa comes to get Geordie and they take a transport. Elise likewise takes Geordie's dad to the medical clinic. Geordie and Melissa kiss as the train moves simultaneously. Dennis and Sylvie snicker and grin as the film closes. Gratitude for watching the recap. Benevolently buy into our feed to get informed when we post the following recap. See you sometime later. The following